This is a follow-up video to my 5 tips to improve your shadow boxing. What I'm gonna do in this video is take those same 5 tips and now you can apply it while working the heavy bag. There's many different workouts and methods to train the heavy bag. If you pay particular attention to Mike Tyson, when he did heavy bag work, it was solely for form or technique. He would hit the heavy bag, move his head, and then look at Kevin Rooney to see if he had any corrections. So for Tyson, it was mainly for technique. But that's not the only way you can hit the heavy bag. You can hit the heavy bag. You can fight the heavy bag. You can spar the heavy bag. You can work on technique and movement patterns. Or you can do hardcore conditioning exercises on the heavy bag. But today's video, we're gonna focus on those 5 tips that we did in the shadow boxing video because you can add them or apply them to the heavy bag. So tip number 1 is when you punch the heavy bag, you want to focus on defense, moving your head. The biggest problem with people have when they're hitting a heavy bag, more than anything, is they pay no attention to defense. You got to work on defense. That's what makes Peekaboo style an effective style is its emphasis on defense. Its defense is just as important as offense because your defensive position that you do after you punch sets up your next punch or counter punch. So the first thing you want to do when you're working a heavy bag is just get in the habit of punching and moving your head. So let me give you an example. If I throw a jab, I move my head. If I throw a jab cross, I move my head. A good rule of thumb, if you're focusing on the Peekaboo style, is if I throw a straight punch, I slip 3 times. If I throw a hook line punch, I weave twice. So I'm here, giving an example. I'm working the heavy bag. I go 7-2, I move my head. Make sure you make full range of motion. Don't do this stuff. Don't do this stuff while I'm just head bobbing. Okay, I'm doing half-ass head movement. All right, you gotta treat your head movement very seriously, just like you're punching. Okay, so give an example. I'm gonna do full range of motion. So if I go 7-2-1, I want full range of motion, okay? Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you get in close, the bag is moving, and the bag will jam you, and it's hard to do your head movement. But you just gotta give it an effort. You're always giving it an effort to move your head after your last punch. So the second tip, just like the shadow boxing video, is after my last punch, I'm gonna move my feet. Okay, so you should be moving either your head or your feet. To give an example, we got the 3 S's. I'm just working the step, I'm stepping. So let me give you an example. Let's say I go 7-2-1, I step back, I step off. If I go 7-2, I sidestep, I step back. So you're moving your feet, okay? You're stepping. Now if I wanna add in a little more, is I'll start adding in skipping. Skipping is, you'll see Tyson do this all the time. I'm kind of skipping, getting on the balls and feet, skipping. A lot of times you do this on the outside to break the rhythm up of your opponent. When you're moving like this, all right, your opponent doesn't even know when you're gonna attack. Okay, so it's good. Then again, if you're always skipping, it does utilize a lot more energy. But if you train it properly, you can use it properly. Okay, so now let's say I'm skipping in front of the bag. I step in, throw my combinations, I go back to skipping. All right, Evander Holyfield's a good one that you'll see that loves to do the skipping, okay? And the third S is shuffling, one of my favorites, okay? Remember, you can shuffle forward. It's just like doing the stepping, except I'm gonna do it quicker, all right? It's almost like a gallop, like a horse galloping, okay? And that's where you can circle. I square up, because right here I'm in my boxing stance. What I do is I square up and I shuffle like this, okay? I'm not bringing my feet together, I'm keeping small little steps, pushing off the opposite leg of the direction of travel. Okay, so let me give you an example. I attack a combination, I shuffle off. All right, I'm moving my feet. I attack with a combination, I move my feet. So a good rule of thumb is, if I move in and then move out, I circle off. 1 to 2 steps at the max, and then I'm circling. I don't want to be stuck on those train tracks on a bridge when a train is coming. Okay, moving north and south. I want to be able to circle away from my opponent. So that's the second tip, is moving your feet. The third tip for the heavy bag, utilize the jab. The jab is the most important punch in boxing. Okay, the jab sets the dinner table, like Teddy Atlas would say. So Remember, you got the different angles of the jab, and then you got combinations of all the above. So I got the standard, just straight in, straight back. Okay, usually I drive off my foot, step in and jab. I want to jab and move my head. If you're doing peekaboo, jab, move my head. Or jab, move my feet and my head. My personal preference, I usually use a combination of moving my head and moving my feet. Okay, because I'm taller, a lot of times I don't want to stay here. I want to move in, get my punches off, and then move out. Okay, because I don't want to get the shorter guy to get underneath me. Okay, so third tip is moving your feet. Remember, you can shuffle. I can go 7-2, shuffle out. Okay, small movements, always moving, always zigzagging and moving my feet. Never just want to stand right in front of my heavy bag or my opponent. Okay, so moving your feet, utilizing the jab. You got the different angles of the jab. You got the standard, you got the outside, you turn the thumb down. You got the inside, okay? I got the body. I can slip and fire the slip jab. So utilizing the jab on the heavy bag is very important. Also, it gives you time to rest. All right? I didn't say that in the first video, is the jab will buy you time. It'll buy you time. Okay, let's say you get in a firefight, an exchange with your opponent, you're gassed, you need to catch your breath. You go back to the jab. So if I go hard on the heavy bag and I move my head and I go back out, I'm gonna go back to the jab, back to working the jab. Different combinations, high, low, in and out. Maybe it gives me time to get my air back, okay? So the next one, tip number 4, is gonna be punching in combination. And you wanna focus on the 3 count. It doesn't mean you always wanna punch in 3 counts. Some kind I punch single, doubles, the 3 count, 4 count, okay, 5 count. All right, different combinations. I want to mix it up, okay, but the sweet spot is the 3 count combination. Why? Because it gives me enough time to attack my opponent, then transition to defense right away. I want to move my head. So if I'm working on the 3 count, maybe I start with the jab, moving my head. Double, triple up the jab. I step in 7-2-1. Move my head, move my feet. Now I'm back off, back to the jab, back to the jab, okay? So combination is number 4. Number 5 is working your feints. Okay, you should be practicing your feints. Remember, you got your head feints. You can fake your head, you can fake your shoulders, okay? You can fake your hands, you can foot stomp, and then add the foot stomp with all of it. I love the foot stomp. I'll fake low, foot stomp, and then come high, my attack. So now, I'm working a heavy bag, moving my head, I might fake 1-2, okay? Or I might head feint 1-2, or 7-2 if you're doing peekaboo, okay? So add in your feints and your movements to set up. Remember, there's 2 different types of attacks. There's a direct attack where I just punch my opponent. I just attack. And then there's an indirect attack where I fake one line, go to another line, or I fake one line and then continue with that line. So I'm basically setting my opponent up. Okay, maybe he has a good cross parry. I throw a jab, he cross parries it. Now I fake the jab, go with the hook, and then throw a combination. So let me give you a little example of how you can add all 5 of these tips when working the heavy bag. So the first thing you want to do is punch and move your head. So moving my head. Moving my head. Then I'm gonna start adding my feet. Maybe I move my head, move my feet in between. Doing a pivot, step around, whatever. Okay? Then I'm gonna add in, make sure I'm punching off the jab. Working the jab. Okay? Usually how I like to hit the heavy bag is I keep it really simple like sparring. So I start with the jab. Remember, I've given you these 5 tips, but there's no order. They all work in conjunction with each other. There's not one more important than the other. You work them all together. Okay, so how I hit the heavy bag is I start with the jab and I end with the jab. Let me show you what I mean. So I start with the jab, working the jab. Poof, poof, working the jab, doubling it up, working the different angles of the jab, and then I can attack the bag, move my head, move my feet, then go back to the jab, back to the jab, back to the jab. So you see the pattern. I'm gonna start with the jab, end with the jab. Or I could do what we call the safety jab or the exit jab. Okay, so that means I start with the jab, moving my head, moving my feet. I attack with the combination. Maybe I move my head, All right, and then I go right back to the jab. Okay, so usually when I do the exit jab is I do it immediately, instead of moving my head, I just start jabbing out. I jab out. So I attack and then jab out. Then I can move my head. All right, I attack, jab out. And usually when I jab out, I circle. And you can jab out and circle both ways. I can go to the left-hand side or I can go to the right-hand side. That's what we call the exit jab. So that is it. That's the 5 tips that you can use to help improve your heavy bag work. Same tips as the shadow boxing. Like I said, I'll link that video up in the description. Have a good day.